and welcome back to LinkedIn Logs, the job business podcast for the website cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. Happy Wednesday. I'm a day late for this episode, mostly because I did not want to record yesterday. Here we are in episode 45 of LinkedIn Logs, and I'll tell you what, I say the episode. Thank God I say the episode numbers and the titles in the first couple of minutes here because I just edited and put up, I would say roughly about 18 videos on the YouTube page that are all backlogged from the podcasts, from this show, the Constitutionals podcast, which is the Entertainment Business News podcast, as well as Late Night Lately, which is late night show, and I had to go back and watch the first couple of minutes because of most of them, because for some reason some of them were mislabeled. So here we go. All right, what are we doing? Well, I still have not heard back from the guy at CNN. I think it's safe to say. I'll send him an email. Blah, blah, blah. I'll do that. I think it's safe to say that the manager, the supervisor that he spoke with, the woman who was one half of the reason why I was unable to continue my tenure at CNN. So, yeah, that is safe to say that he reached out to her and she did not have nice words to say about me. And you know what? It's fine. Because when I get my Emmy nomination and I win and I'm up on that stage, I'm going to name the 5 people who were the worst. All right, let's get on with this first story. All right, fine. These are in no particular order, but I'll just go with the first one. This comes from Jennifer Moss over at Variety. Warner Bros. Discovery to lay off nearly 1,000 employees. Cuts to max staffers in single digits. It's no secret that I'll go ahead and say it. David Zaslav is not good at his job. That's one reason why I'm never going to be able to work at Warner's again. But it is, I mean, to be this far into a complicated and overly unnecessary combination of a reality-based platform of networks that has no reason to be mixed with the number one, if not the number 2 biggest movie production studio in history, in the world, that there is and ever will be. Only number 2 to Disney, not Paramount, not the rest of those people. When I think of movie studio, I think Disney, Warner, and then the rest fall in: Paramount, Columbia, Sony, which I think Columbia is a Sony. Anyway, but we have more layoffs that are coming. It's nearly 1,000 people will be laid off across a few sectors in a new cost-cutting move at WBD, including finance, business affairs, production, and at Max, which is a streamer. The vast majority of the eliminations were in the finance division, with at least 10 Max staffers affected in total. And you know, I have since I worked at CNN and Cartoon Network, I'm connected to a lot of people on LinkedIn via LinkedIn, but we have that one connection of having worked at one of that company, and not one person has anything positive to say about this Zaslav guy. And the thing is, they're not as vocal as me. I mean, they probably are. I just don't talk to them. But I just, David Zaslav, if you're listening to this, you are not doing a good job. You need to, if I were in this man's position right now, if I was principal for a day, and I was able to handle Warner Brothers the way I would handle it, and this is not Monday morning quarterback. This is not backseat driving. This is, I guarantee I can change the entire company for the better without firing people. In fact, I'll give people more jobs. You know why? Because I'm only going to take home $1 million. That's it. Look at where I live. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't need much. I would like my bike back since I was hit by a car. And healthcare since I was hit by a car. And if we're talking about any updates, I would love to get a bed frame. Let me get rid of this box spring. It would be, but I would cap my earnings, and I would truly, if I believe in the company, I would take some back earnings on stock, whatever. But the cash earnings would be super super duper low, and I would reinvest into the company. We've talked about, or actually I don't know if I've done on this show, but at least I've done on Constitutionals. We've talked about earning money on the back end. When Schwarzenegger picked up, what movie was it? Was it Terminator? I forgot. It was one of his early movies, it might have been either Twins or Kindergarten Cop. But instead of taking a huge paycheck up front, he took points on the back end, so that he believed if the movie did well, he would get paid. And surprise, I think it was Twins. Surprise, surprise, the movie did well, and he was paid handsomely. I believe Warner is truly one of the biggest names. I had to scratch my lower back. No big deal. It's got a tramp stamp. Just kidding. Just kidding. But I think if you're watching this video, I'm all over the place. But Warner is one of the biggest media properties in the world, spanning television, movies, video games, whatever. You cannot tell me that this company is doing well under David Zaslav's leadership. To me, it feels like what when Paramount was still technically there's no deal that has been signed between Paramount and Skydance, but when Paramount was fully on sale and one of the offers was from Apollo and Sony. Sony wanted just Paramount. Sony did not give a flying hoot about any other property. They wanted Paramount and by extension Paramount Plus. And they would have sold off MTV, BET, all these Viacom properties. They would have made Paramount a shell of what it is now. And even if Paramount's not technically doing the best, it's still this big branded company. I mean, when Paramount Plus rebranded from CBS All Access to Paramount Plus, they were talking their whole marketing strategy, which I really am behind, was they're a mountain of entertainment. So it's great. You've got CBS Mornings, you've got Nickelodeon, you've got BET, you've got Comedy Central, you've got the movies. And like it like it or not, they were the first network only streaming platform, and they did well, and they were kicking so much butt when they first launched, and now they're existing. But if Zaslav is a smart leader, and so far he's proving he's not, Warner Brothers would not be doing all this layoff stuff. They would have fought for the NBA contract, like, dutifully. Like, we would have heard rumblings that they went to war and they went back and forth. But no, we haven't even heard that Warner has tried to match Amazon or match NBC on what they wanted for that. Zaslav, you don't need this much money. You don't need this much money. You don't need $50 million. You don't need 22 cash and the rest in stocks. You don't need any of that stuff. If you are somebody who truly believes in your writers and your stars and your producers and your crews and your networks and your streamers and the studios and the subsidiaries that Warner Brothers owns, then be ready to take the hit monetarily and and be the leader that we need you to be. You cannot keep laying people off over and over and over again, because that's not the solution. The solution is to step up and say, I'm not doing well, and I'm gonna be the one to take to take a step back and let the others flourish. Because at this point, it seems like AT&T was a better owner than Discovery is. And I saw a headline yesterday, which I do not agree with, but Bank of America, their analysts said that at this point, Warner Brothers Discovery should be sold. And I don't agree with it, but with what Zaslav is doing, that's what it feels like. It feels like you're trying to meet this what was it, $50 billion deficit or something like that, however much money that they owed. You're trying to meet those numbers, and then what? I was on Max yesterday, and I was looking for full disclosure, I was looking for animated DC Comics movies. I just really wanted to watch an animated DC Comics movie. I'm holding off on Crisis on Infinite Earths because it is in 3 parts, and I will wait until the 3rd part comes out so I can watch all 3 at once. All 3 90-minute movies at once, and it'll be a wonderful afternoon, probably a Saturday. Everybody's out having fun with their friends. I would have just finished working out and said, and there's no golf on, and I go, all right, time to watch 3 90-minute animated DC Comics movies. But as I was scrolling through the DC part, they had roughly 20 or 30 things. And that includes some of Zack Snyder's movies, the Suicide Squad movies, and a handful of cartoon ones. And they didn't have a lot of stuff. And then the Justice League TV show, Static Shock, all these shows that I love and I've seen 100,000 times. When I go to Disney Plus, I can watch Recess. I can watch Teacher's Pet. I can watch American Dragon, Jake Long. I can watch everything. Most things. I can watch 90% of their catalog versus on Max. I have to, everything I want to watch is on my wish list. And that includes shows I've already seen. It's just unfortunate that Max is something I should never, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I should never want to leave Max, HBO Max. I should never want to leave that app. But here I am, barely watching it. Same thing with Hulu. Hulu's gotten a little broken for me. Now I'm just sitting here and catching up on Law and Order on Peacock. You think I like using Peacock? All right, hey, let's get on to this next story. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter, written by Caitlin Kilkenny. Writers and actors scramble to keep their health insurance at a post-strike Hollywood. We know that we've had the strikes, and there was a lot of work stoppage for a long time. Unfortunately, with work stoppage, a lot of producers or writers or actors or whomever was striking, when you lose that time, you lose eligibility. Sometimes, depending on how much you've worked, you lose eligibility for the health plan. SAG-AFTRA, I know for a fact, has a really excellent health plan, but you have to work in order to qualify. Let's see. For nearly 4 months of Miki Yashimita, who received a health diagnosis that required surgery to remove a non-cancerous tumor, for nearly 4 months following her qualifying period, her union, SAG-AFTRA, was on strike against film and television companies, and Yamashita was barred by union rules from working on many projects. In the months following, production didn't fully rebound in Los Angeles area as the entertainment business continued to experience a contraction, and by mid-June, Yamashita, who says she has been on the union's health plan on and off throughout her career and has sometimes gotten different coverage throughout outside jobs, was still around $12,000 behind the required earnings threshold. I believe the threshold is like 40 or 27. Excuse me. Okay. Yes. SAG-AFTRA performers generally must make at least $27,000 a year in covered earnings or work at least 104 days over the course of 12 months to qualify for health insurance, starting in 2024. It used to be cheaper than that, less than that, because I remember when they raised it, and that was kind of a big stink. Yamashita, she's been around for a minute. She's appeared on Cobra Kai and voiced a character on The Lion Guard, but that doesn't mean that The Lion Guard's been over with, and who knows if she appears in this next season of Cobra Kai, which probably would have been shot, last year, maybe a year and a half ago. Barring some miracle, Yamashita said, I doubt I will actually earn the threshold by June 30th. I will continue to hustle until that deadline comes, after which she will assess other healthcare options. To be $12,000 below that threshold of $27,000, and that's low. Like that's almost poverty levels, which is in the $26,000 range, I believe. Only 25,000 union members before SAG-AFTRA's strike in 2023. Out of the 160,000 met the requirements. Now, she could be making money elsewhere, but again, if it's not a SAG-AFTRA project, if she wasn't hired, because plenty of times, people can shoot music videos, they can shoot shorts, they can do other things that aren't SAG-AFTRA eligible. You can even have a podcast that's SAG-AFTRA eligible and get paid, $50 for appearing on the podcast. But that counts towards the total, as opposed to you doing a music video for Bleachers. I didn't think I was going to be able to pull a band out at the end of that sentence. Yet here we are. Writers Guild of America members, meanwhile, are required to make $43,862 in covered earnings over 4 quarters in order to qualify for the Writers Guild Industry Health Fund. Starting July 1st, they must make $45,397. This health plan catastrophe now is, it's let me finish that thought. It is unfortunate to hear, and it is something that our economy, our healthcare system, we all, truly, the United States needs to get with it when it comes to the healthcare systems of around the world, in Canada and Europe and what have you. Especially a guy who was hit by a car. I won't be paying for it, though. It's very true. I will not be paying for it. It's not me. I got a lawyer, baby. They're very good, very litigious. I don't know who that character was. But to see people struggling like this and unable to meet requirements. I mean, sometimes I know there's plenty of actors who, they might be older, or acting may not be their main thing, but it's a way to get health care, and they get the health, they do enough just to get health care, and then they can, coast the rest, not coast, but, live their lives the rest of the year, so that they have this great healthcare plan. And again, it's a good healthcare plan. It's just the ridiculous amount of things you have to do, the amount of money you have to make is, unfortunate. And you pay $1,400 to join these guilds, $1,400 or more, I believe. And there's gonna have to be. This is the thought I interrupted myself with. There's gonna have to be, and as Caitlin, I believe that's her name here, right? Katie Kilkenny. That, as Katie Kilkenny suggests here, there's gonna have to be some leniency. And yeah, that's what I was thinking when I'm talking about this. There's going to have to be some type of way for everybody to who was at the threshold when these strikes hit, who was about to touch it. There needs to be a way for people to be able to play catch up. Where was I? I scrolled somewhere and I was done. Okay, anyway. The Writers Guild Industry Health Fund and the SAG-AFTRA Health Plan are offering extensions of health coverage for 1/4 of union members who meet certain requirements. Oh, you would have to read through these pages. She linked to SAG-AFTRA's health plan, which, as part of the strike suspension agreement, the Alliance of the Motion Picture television producers and SAG-AFTRA agreed to recommend to the SAG-AFTRA Health Plan Board of Trustees to extend coverage as described below, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, so they have qualifications for people who are 65 or older and receiving a pension from SAG. Okay. And qualification requirements for non-retirees. And the non-retirees, let's see. It still says if you don't meet that. Oh, they changed the base earning periods. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's fine. And then for the Writers Guild of America, if you lost health coverage immediately following an earning cycle that included all or any of the strike period, you qualify for an extension. Okay. So they did roughly the same thing. So what both of these plans did was they had new dates. So if the strike happened, strike was like what 6, 7 months, something like that. So if the strike, I'm making up numbers and I'm making up dates because I don't remember when the strike was. But if the strike was from September to March, then you would, and they would give you dates. So September 2023, October 2023, December 2023, February 2024, and you lost coverage in those points, then you were extended. So that's fine. They provided additional time, but haven't been a cure-all for some members. Yeah, very true. In the meantime, creators of all levels are scrambling to meet the requirements. There's a writer for the shows Tracker and Waffles and Mochi. David Radcliffe, he's $5,000 away from requalifying from the Writers Guild Industry Health Fund. Oh my God, $5,000. After receiving a coverage extension, he needs to make up his earnings shortfall by September 30th. So you have to make that money back. They're just not going to give it to you. That makes sense. He has cerebral palsy and says for someone who uses a wheelchair and uses crutches and has a lifelong condition, having insurance, especially strong insurance like what the Writers Guild offers, there is a sense of security and stability in that. Yeah. Oh man, it's. I mean, people are working and they're trying to do it, but especially when the work stoppage combined with layoffs at Warner Brothers, and lots of shows and movies just not getting made as much as they were a year ago or 2 years ago or prior to COVID, prior to the pandemic. We're just in a point where people, Maverick, people are truly doing what they can. Maverick, hey, people are doing what they can. I'm so sorry. This is unprofessional. Can we start the interview over? People are at a point where they have to do things that they didn't expect to do when it comes to this. And also, they're not going to be able to. I mean, sometimes you're going to have to take a very crappy job, like a writing. I don't know. This is not something that I would say is crappy, but if you don't have the skill set, writing for an award show or writing for a short film for somebody to put out on Temu.com. I don't know. I couldn't think of something. I just watched a video from CNET talking about comparing dupes from Temu and the real life things. Also, so Maverick barked. Maverick, if you're not watching, Maverick was barking at the maintenance people rolling by with their carts. During every interview I've had in the past year since I've had this dog, if he starts barking, first of all, if he's on one like that day before the interview, I'll go, hey, I'm sorry about my dog. He's a puppy, blah blah blah. And he still is a puppy. He's 1.5. But during the CNN interview, Maverick was having a very not particularly very good day when it came to his anxiety, and it was because he was dumped and he's still very anxious. But Nova and I are a very good family for him. Nova's the cat. Anyway, Maverick was freaking out, and I told the guy, I was like, hey man, I'm sorry about this. My dog is he's I didn't say this, but I was like, he's being stupid. He's like, oh yeah, it's no problem. And you find out who really is. During an interview, I am myself. I don't put on a front, and that's why I probably don't get hired. But I am myself. All right, let me finish this with this last story. This comes from the New York Times, written by Jordan Holman. When that job promotion is really a glass cliff. And this was an interesting find for me. I probably could have. I shouldn't have mentioned this. Whatever, who cares? I was going to save it for next week. All right. A glass cliff effect is a phenomenon in which a company in crisis appoints a woman to turn things around, often setting them up for failure. So Hallman, when she writes about Stephanie Lenartz, who was put in charge of turning around Under Armour in late 2022, but lasted just a year, or someone like Sue Gove, who was when Bed Bath & Beyond was crashing towards bankruptcy, they put her in charge. We've heard of glass ceilings, but glass cliff relates to a glass ceiling because a glass ceiling is something that for women, it is only for women, that they when they reach a certain point, they can't get any higher than that. And for a glass cliff, as coined by Sophie Williams, author of the book The Glass Cliff, the term, quote, speaks again to that invisible danger of being high up and potentially falling down. We've seen this happen time and again with these companies, with big companies only putting a woman in charge when something bad is happening. And why do companies feel, I wonder, why do they feel so powered to do that? To say like, hey, if this is going down, then we can blame it on a woman. We can blame it on this person who probably wouldn't have done a good job in the first place. And that's just a company speaking. That's not what I'm saying. Research shows that businesses that appoint women to leadership roles for the first time tend to have been in crisis for 5 months or more. That's according to Sophie Williams. Christy Glass, a professor of sociology at Utah State University, has studied the phenomenon since the mid-2000s and often publishes research about it with her colleague Allison Cook. One thing they have found is that women and people of color tend to have acquired the skills needed to lead in times of crisis. But so does that mean that they are the ones more fit then to take the company back to or at least stabilize the company, and then when it comes, when it comes to finding a permanent leader, because a lot of these people will be interim, at least that's the title that they would be given, titles they would be given. Then it's just taken away and given back to a white man. Let me say this. Let's go back to David Zaslav and Warner Bros. Discovery. If the board of Warner Brothers right now, if they're smart, if they were, I'm never going to work at that company ever again. Oh God. No. If they were really concerned about the state of Warner Brothers right now, notice how I never say Discovery. If they were really concerned about the state of Warner Brothers Discovery right now, and they saw these layoffs, and they saw the losing of the NBA license, and they saw Max is stagnating, and they saw their CEO talking about consolidation, talking about how streamers need to consolidate. We've already done cable. And they wanted to vote that person out, and they wanted to put in an interim CEO, and they chose a woman, or a person of color, or a woman of color. That person would be marked with an interim, and then that person brings them back to zero. The company goes from negatives to zero. Would they let that person stay in charge? And I'm thinking the answer is no, because there's glass cliff phenomenon. Even though the woman or the person of color would be the one who's most qualified than some white guy to help lead the company to where it is. If David Zaslav hired after Chris Licht was let go, instead of hiring Mark Thompson at CNN, where would CNN be right now had Mark Thompson not been hired? If Mark Thompson was replaced with a woman who could definitely, who's the lady who's in charge of, who was in charge of Washington Post CEO? Let me see. Washington Post CEO is Will Lewis. Who am I thinking of? Oh, Wall Street Journal, WSJ. No, that's a white guy. Is it Washington Post? It's not New York Times. Oh, God. Oh, who's the woman in charge of NPR? Okay, let's do it. NPR CEO is Catherine Maher. Or Marr. I don't know. But if she was in charge of CNN, you know what? Actually, I'll use NPR as an example. She was blasted because of someone said, not blasted. An old writer, not an old writer, a writer said that Catherine's not doing a good job and that NPR is left leaning. I don't think that's the truth. Especially after watching a lot of things. If she came out and she defended NPR's decisions on a lot of things, including their shows and their hosts and everything like that. Especially after David Folkenfilk wrote a piece talking about that writer who was then let go or not let go. He resigned from his NPR position. The writer, not David Folkenfilk, who was also a reporter at NPR. She came out and defended the company and everything, and quite frankly, I think NPR is doing a decent enough job. They are taking a big podcast focus right now, which I'm not a huge fan of, but this is the thing that makes money as opposed to people going to the website, and they are doing more video. I'm not gonna say they're doing a lot of video, but they are doing more video stuff. So if she's doing a good job, and I wouldn't say NPR is in some type of crisis mode. There are some things that do need to change there, like their intern policies and pay and stuff like that. However, Mark Thompson over at CNN, if a woman who was in charge of CNN did the debate between Trump and Biden, that the way that Mark Thompson did it, which was widely maligned, and people did attack Dana Bash and Jake Tapper. Buddy, you got lay down, go. People did attack Jake Tapper and Dana Bash because of their performance and because CNN refused to fact check the things that both candidates were saying. If a woman did that, because we just kind of moved on, and if a woman did that, that'd be a case for her for firing, a cause for her firing. So this glass cliff effect is something that should be noted, and it is, and I do kind of see as a sexist the way companies treat women is women in high positions is very sexist and deeply unfair. Look at me. Listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talk to some of your favorite famous friends. If you want to see a video version of this show, head to the website, head to youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can also see video versions of the other shows. The Constitutionals podcast, which is the entertainment business news podcast, as well as Late Night Lately, which is the late night show. Subscribe to those wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at C Plus Comedy, me on those platforms at Chad Black White. Thank you so much. Bye.